This week in London, there's been a flurry of publicity and some criticism for a controversial new book called KGB, The Inside Story. It's co-authored by Christopher Andrew, a Cambridge University historian, and Oleg Gordievsky, a former KGB agent who for the last 11 years of his career was a double agent for Great Britain. The book once again fuels the British obsession with espionage and the identity of the so-called fifth man, the fifth member of the notorious ring of Cambridge University students recruited by the KGB in the 30s. It adds to the familiar names of Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, Donald MacLean, and Anthony Blunt the new name of John Cairncross, now 76 and living in France and denying all of the allegations. Gordievsky defected in 1985, hasn't been able to see his wife and two children since then. They remain in the Soviet Union under strict surveillance, and this morning he's with us from our bureau in London, wearing a disguise to protect his own identity. Good morning, Mr. Gordievsky.
Good morning.
If, in fact, Mr. Cairncross was the fifth man, what did he do that was of any benefit to the Soviet Union?
Oh, he was an extremely helpful agent, cooperating with the Soviet Union between the 30s and the, don't know exactly, 50s, probably. Mm-hmm. And particularly helpful he was during the Second World War. In that period, in 6 years of the war, he went from one department to another department, from intelligence service to the security service, and then to the second intelligence service, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, mm-hmm. and to the Treasury. And also, in the period of time, he was private secretary to one of the ministers. And through that job, he got access to the top secret papers of the members of the Winston Churchill's war cabinet. And all his information was extremely important for the Soviet government.
Yeah. That was then. Let's talk about now. You say in your book that the Soviet Union came as close to launching a nuclear war with the United States during the 80s as during the Bay of Pigs crisis. What specifically was going on?
In the period between 79 and 84, there was a war hysteria in the Soviet Union. Some people in the Soviet leadership started to believe that the highly ideological conservative administration in the United States,
the Reagan administration,
might have been planning a sudden nuclear attack on the Soviet Union in order to quickly to get rid of the Soviet Union, of communism forever, for good. And they asked the two Soviet intelligence services, the KGB and the military, the GRU, to start watching, looking for signs of the preparation to a sudden nuclear attack on the United States.
But the signs they looked at were pretty bizarre. They were counting meetings between the Queen and Mrs. Thatcher, among other things?
Yes, because they were looking for any signs of the possible preparation of the West, mm-hmm. to a nuclear attack. They were looking for all possible signs, for serious signs, troop movements, military preparations, weapon system being prepared, but also for small signs like activities of the government offices, Prime Minister working until the early morning hours, Prime Minister visiting the Queen, the American ambassador in London visiting the different agencies in London, the windows of intelligence security mm-hmm. services on the Ministry of Defense lit through the night, a lot of limousines between the ministries.
It's been 5 years since you were part of the KGB, but I suspect you have some knowledge of what the goings-on today are. A lot of people think with glasnost there's less KGB activity. Would they be wrong?
No, the KGB activities are still the same, particularly abroad, because they have kept an enormous intelligence apparatus in the United States, in other Western countries, in the whole world. Mm. And that apparatus is still intact, providing the Soviet leadership with all kinds of intelligence, military, political, economic, scientific and technological, and also the traditional drive to penetrate the Western intelligence community is still there. Inside the country, the apparatus is also still the same, but it is slightly weakened by the growing criticism of the KGB, by the emerging progressive, liberal and democratic forces in the Soviet Union and liberal media.
Mr. Gordievsky, I wish we had more time, and maybe we can invite you back another morning, but I'm afraid that will have to be all of our conversation this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Very interesting. And we'll be back with much more 10 minutes before the hour. Back after this.